Stoicism, an ancient Greek philosophy founded by Zeno of Citium, offers timeless wisdom for navigating life's challenges with resilience and clarity. At its core, Stoicism emphasizes the distinction between what we can control, our thoughts, actions and responses, and what lies beyond our control, external circumstances, outcomes, and the behavior of others. By internalizing this fundamental Stoic principle, individuals can free themselves from the anxiety, frustration, and dependency on external validation that often undermine confidence. The pursuit of control over outcomes, whether it be success, approval, or the behavior of others, often leads to suffering because these things are outside of our direct influence. Stoicism teaches us to embrace the concept of amor fati, the love of fate, and to accept life as it unfolds, focusing on what we can control and letting go of what we cannot. By doing so, confidence is no longer dependent on external validation or external circumstances, but rather on the quality of our character and the virtue with which we act. Maintaining confidence amidst uncertainty and adversity becomes possible when we shift our focus inward, aligning our efforts with values that are grounded in what is within our power. When we let go of attachment to outcomes, we create space for self-assurance, emotional resilience, and tranquility. In this journey of self-mastery, Stoicism offers practical tools, such as the dichotomy of control, equanimity, and the pursuit of virtue, that help individuals cultivate unwavering confidence. This sense of confidence is not fragile or fleeting. Instead, it is built upon the foundation of internal strength, clear purpose, and emotional detachment from external outcomes. In this introduction, we explore how Stoic principles empower individuals to let go of the desire for control, embrace uncertainty, and maintain confidence in the face of life's inevitable challenges. Number 1. The psychological advantage of remaining calm. When she plays hard to get. When a woman engages in the behavior of playing hard to get, it can trigger a wide range of emotional responses in a man. The desire for connection, validation, and acceptance often creates a sense of uncertainty and frustration, particularly when faced with someone who appears distant or disinterested. Many men fall into the trap of seeking reassurance or validation, mistakenly believing that someone's attention is a reflection of their worth. However, adopting a Stoic perspective and maintaining calm in such situations offers a profound psychological advantage. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of distinguishing between what is within our control and what is not. A high-value man understands that a woman's interest, or lack thereof, is entirely beyond his control. By staying composed and unattached, he can avoid being consumed by the emotional turbulence that often follows such interactions. In doing so, he prevents external circumstances from dictating his sense of self-worth. The reality is that a person's behavior, whether they play hard to get or not, does not determine the value of another. The high-value man knows this deeply, and thus he refrains from attaching his self-worth to the outcome of someone else's interest. Remaining calm in such situations allows him to maintain his emotional equilibrium and retain a sense of control. His worth is not defined by another's attention or pursuit, and this detachment creates a quiet yet powerful presence. When a woman plays hard to get, she often seeks to test boundaries, test attention, or elicit validation from the man. However, when confronted with indifference, she begins to question whether her behavior is as effective as she once believed. This is the key shift, the moment when the man's calm and composed response forces her to confront her own insecurities. The high-value man understands that his detachment from such games disrupts their very nature. When he refuses to chase, he reframes the situation, leaving the woman to ponder whether her actions have had the intended effect or if they have, in fact, backfired. This shift in dynamic is crucial, as it encourages the woman to reconsider her approach and the reasons behind her desire for attention. The power of emotional detachment is that it conveys strength, confidence, and self-assuredness. A man who remains calm in such situations signals that he is unaffected by the need for external validation or approval. This behavior fosters an air of mystery and self-reliance, which often becomes far more attractive than any form of pursuit. The pursuit of validation is often linked to insecurity, and when a man steps back and refuses to chase, he creates a distance that can amplify his perceived value. In the absence of overt attention or neediness, the high-value man stands out as someone who knows his worth, regardless of external validation. This detachment from outcome doesn't stem from a lack of care, but rather from a deeper understanding that his self-worth isn't dependent on another's behavior. It reflects an inner confidence that is built on a foundation of self-control and acceptance. When a man remains calm in the face of someone playing hard to get, he demonstrates an understanding that the opinions and actions of others are not within his control. Instead of becoming consumed by the need to gain someone's attention, he shifts his focus inward, focusing on self-improvement, purpose, and personal growth. This is where true power lies. A man who remains calm and composed, who doesn't chase but instead lives by his principles, embodies the traits of a high-value man. He doesn't need validation from others to feel complete. His sense of self-worth is grounded in his own virtues, values, and goals. This detachment allows him to maintain his emotional well-being, knowing that what others think or do is ultimately irrelevant. By adopting this mindset, he not only protects his peace, but also disrupts the cycle of chasing and approval-seeking. The playing hard to get game often thrives on the uncertainty it creates, but when a man remains unaffected, he disarms its power. The woman who once sought attention begins to see that her efforts are no longer producing the desired results, prompting her to rethink her strategy. In this way, emotional detachment becomes a form of strength, as it forces others to reassess their behavior and motives. A high-value man understands that his worth isn't defined by someone else's actions or attention. Number 2. Using silence as a weapon. Against playing hard to get, using silence as a weapon against someone who is playing hard to get is a highly effective strategy rooted in Stoic philosophy. Silence isn't merely the absence of communication, it is an active and intentional choice to withhold attention and engagement. In the context of someone playing hard to get, silence sends a powerful message that isn't easily ignored. When a woman adopts this behavior of withholding attention or showing disinterest, many men often feel the impulse to chase, to seek reassurance, or to react emotionally. However, a high-value man understands that chasing validation from someone who is distant only serves to diminish his own sense of power and worth. Silence, in contrast, demonstrates self-control and detachment, key principles of Stoicism. The act of withholding words or overt attention creates space and allows for reflection on the part of both the man and the woman. When a man remains silent in response to someone playing hard to get, he doesn't become reactive or seek validation. Instead, he detaches himself from the need for external approval or attention, recognizing that his self-worth isn't tied to whether someone chooses to engage with him. Silence is not a sign of weakness, rather it's a sign of strength and self-mastery. By withdrawing attention and refraining from chasing, a man forces the woman to confront her own motivations and insecurities. When the usual response of attention and validation is no longer forthcoming, she begins to question whether her behavior has had the desired effect. The absence of communication creates a void that can be unsettling, as humans naturally seek connection and acknowledgement. When this connection is disrupted, it often prompts reflection and re-evaluation. In the case of someone playing hard to get, silence forces the other person to confront their own desires and insecurities. It highlights the power dynamic between neediness and detachment. A high-value man recognizes that his worth doesn't depend on another person's approval or attention. Silence amplifies this awareness, demonstrating that his value remains intact, regardless of whether someone chooses to engage with him. The act of not reacting, not pursuing, and not chasing allows him to reclaim control over his emotions. It sends a message of confidence and self-assurance, traits that are far more attractive than desperation or neediness. Silence also creates a sense of mystery that can be deeply appealing. When someone is used to a pattern of attention and validation, the sudden absence of those things disrupts their expectations. This silence signals that the man is unbothered by their actions, which often forces the woman to re-evaluate her behavior and motives. The silence doesn't come from a place of anger or resentment, but from a deeper understanding of personal boundaries and self-worth. It's a reminder that attention and validation are not owed to anyone, and that a man's value remains constant regardless of external circumstances. In this space of silence, the man is free to focus on what truly matters: his own growth, purpose, and self-improvement. Silence isn't about ignoring someone entirely. Rather, it's about creating boundaries that protect one's emotional well-being. By refusing to engage in the game of pursuing someone who plays hard to get, a man demonstrates that he values his time and attention. This can be a powerful deterrent to those who thrive on attention but aren't genuinely invested. In the end, silence serves as a tool of self-respect and clarity. It removes the neediness that often drives people to seek validation, allowing a man to act from a place of strength rather than weakness. When someone is playing hard to get, silence becomes a means of reinforcing self-worth, disrupting patterns of manipulation, and encouraging the other person to reflect on their actions. In this silence, a man communicates that his attention is valuable, something that isn't easily given or taken for granted. Number 3. Embracing the power of strategic ignorance in relationships. Embracing the power of strategic ignorance in relationships is a practice deeply rooted in Stoic philosophy and emotional intelligence. Strategic ignorance doesn't mean being unaware or inattentive. Rather, it involves selectively choosing what to focus on and what to dismiss. In the context of relationships, this means consciously ignoring certain behaviors, manipulative tactics, or emotional triggers that don't serve one's well-being or higher purpose. When faced with situations where someone is seeking to control or influence through attention-seeking, validation, or power games, adopting a stance of strategic ignorance allows a person to maintain their emotional equilibrium and self-respect. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control the actions of others, but we can control our responses. By choosing to ignore behaviors that seek to elicit emotional reactions or manipulate outcomes, a high-value individual reinforces their autonomy and power within the relationship. For instance, when someone plays hard to get or tests boundaries in an attempt to gauge the level of interest, strategically ignoring such behavior disrupts the pattern of manipulation. Instead of responding to the need for constant attention or validation, a person focusing on strategic ignorance removes themselves from the cycle of emotional dependency and reactive behavior. This doesn't mean disengagement entirely, but rather understanding that not every action or emotion requires a response. Strategic ignorance allows one to focus on what truly matters: mutual respect, trust, and personal growth. When a person adopts this approach, They send a clear message that they are not easily swayed by superficial or manipulative tactics. This not only preserves their emotional strength, but also creates a sense of mystery and independence that can be highly attractive. Moreover, ignoring irrelevant negativity or gamesmanship teaches the other party that their behavior holds little influence over the person's self-worth or emotional state. This becomes a powerful tool for maintaining control over one's emotional responses. By strategically ignoring behaviors designed to provoke insecurity or emotional dependency, a person reinforces the belief that their value is intrinsic and not dependent on external validation. In relationships where individuals are emotionally invested in seeking approval or attention, strategic ignorance serves as a reminder that true connection is built on mutual respect and understanding, not manipulation or control. Additionally, this practice helps avoid unnecessary drama and emotional entanglement. Rather than reacting impulsively to every slight or provocation, a person who embraces strategic ignorance takes a step back, assesses the situation with clarity, and chooses to disengage from the emotional charge. This not only fosters inner peace, but also projects an image of confidence and self-assuredness. It's important to note that strategic ignorance doesn't involve passive avoidance or neglect. It is an active, intentional decision to disengage from behaviors that don't contribute to meaningful growth or healthy interaction. It acknowledges that some behaviors, particularly those rooted in control or emotional manipulation, are not worth one's time or energy. Through this approach, a person develops the ability to discern what truly matters in a relationship and what should be ignored for the sake of emotional well-being. By applying strategic ignorance, a person creates boundaries that protect their mental and emotional health. This boundary setting empowers them to stay aligned with their values and goals, ensuring that their focus remains on what contributes positively to their life and relationships. In doing so, they become less susceptible to emotional manipulation and more capable of fostering genuine, healthy connections. Ultimately, embracing the power of strategic ignorance is an act of self-mastery. It embodies the Stoic belief that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can control how we respond to them, and that mastery over one's own emotions and reactions is the true source of strength. Number 4. Reclaiming your worth by letting go of attachment. Reclaiming your worth by letting go of attachment is a profound concept rooted in Stoic philosophy and emotional resilience. Attachment to people, outcomes, or validations often stems from a deep-seated need for control or a fear of losing something that feels essential to one's identity. However, true strength lies in the ability to detach from these external dependencies and recognize that our worth isn't defined by external circumstances or the opinions of others. Stoicism teaches that we should focus on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and responses, and accept what is not. By letting go of attachment, a person liberates themselves from the burden of emotional dependency and gains the freedom to live with peace and clarity. Attachment often leads to suffering because it fosters an illusion of control over things that are inherently outside of one's influence. Whether it's clinging to a relationship, a job, or the approval of others, attachment creates an internal struggle where desires and expectations conflict with reality. The Stoic understands that things change, people grow, and outcomes are rarely within our full control. By letting go of attachment, we free ourselves from the anxiety and pain that arise from holding on too tightly to what we cannot change. In relationships, letting go of attachment doesn't mean detaching from love or care, but rather from the need for validation or external affirmation. When someone plays hard to get or acts in ways that seem distant or unresponsive, attachment often fuels the desire to seek approval or chase after that attention. However, when a person chooses to detach, they no longer derive their sense of self-worth from whether someone reciprocates their interest. Instead, they understand that their worth is intrinsic and not dependent on another's behavior. By releasing attachment to outcomes, one frees themselves from the emotional turmoil that comes with trying to control situations that are ultimately beyond their grasp. The act of letting go allows space for clarity and self-awareness. A high-value individual recognizes that their value remains constant, whether they receive the attention they desire or not. When we release attachment, we stop seeking external validation as a measure of our self-worth. This detachment from validation leads to greater emotional stability and inner peace. The person who has let go of attachment no longer defines their worth by others' actions, but by their own values, virtues, and principles. This shift allows for a deeper connection with oneself, free from the distractions of constant seeking and expectation. Detachment isn't a form of apathy or indifference. It's an act of self-respect and clarity. It allows one to focus on what truly matters: personal growth, purpose, and the cultivation of virtues that lead to a fulfilled life. By letting go of attachment, a person acknowledges that their worth isn't determined by external factors, but by the character they cultivate within themselves. In doing so, they also become more resilient to the fluctuations of life, able to face challenges with courage and equanimity. Letting go of attachment is not about rejecting desire, but about understanding that desires and outcomes are not always within our control. The person who has embraced this wisdom becomes unshackled from the emotional burdens that arise from clinging to what cannot be held. They understand that people come and go, relationships change, and circumstances shift, but their worth remains unwavering. By embracing detachment, one steps into a state of self-possession, free from the traps of dependency and external validation. In this freedom, they discover a deeper sense of confidence and self-assurance. Letting go allows one to live with clarity, peace, and the certainty that their worth is not tied to the ever-changing circumstances of life, but rather to their own character and the values they uphold. Number 5. Why playing hard to get signals? A lack of true value. Playing hard to get is often misunderstood as a strategy to increase attraction or gain control in relationships, but from a Stoic and psychologically grounded perspective, it often signals a deeper issue of lack of true value. When someone engages in this behavior, they are typically seeking external validation, power, or control over another person's emotions. However, what they fail to realize is that the very act of playing hard to get often undermines their own perceived value. True value in relationships doesn't come from playing games, creating distance, or making oneself appear elusive. It comes from authenticity, confidence, and a genuine connection built on mutual respect. The person who feels the need to play hard to get often does so because they are uncertain of their worth. They believe that by creating distance or withholding attention, they can increase their perceived value and maintain some form of control over the relationship. However, in reality, this behavior tends to backfire. Those who genuinely possess confidence and self-assuredness do not need to manipulate others or play games to assert their value. They understand that their worth is not defined by external approval or the attention they receive from others. Instead, they cultivate self-respect and confidence from within, grounded in their own virtues, values, and personal growth. Playing hard to get suggests a reliance on superficial tactics rather than a deeper, authentic connection. The act of withholding interest or attention often stems from insecurity, not strength. It's an attempt to create mystery or allure, but in doing so, it tends to highlight a lack of emotional maturity and self-awareness. A person who is truly confident doesn't need to play games to feel validated or desired. They understand that their value is not something that fluctuates based on how much others pursue them. Instead, they bring value into the relationship by being authentic, grounded, and self-assured. The person who plays hard to get often fears rejection or the loss of control, which reflects their underlying insecurity. They are attempting to manipulate the other party into proving their worth, often at the expense of their own self-respect. True value comes from being comfortable with oneself and not seeking external validation to confirm one's worth. When someone relies on games like playing hard to get, they project uncertainty and a lack of emotional resilience. They give off the impression that their self-worth is tied to how much attention they receive, rather than the inherent qualities they bring to the table. In contrast, someone who has genuine confidence doesn't feel the need to control or manipulate the dynamics of the relationship. They understand that their value is inherent and does not require external validation. True value is built through consistent actions, integrity, and self-awareness, not through games or manipulation. Furthermore, the person who engages in playing hard to get often fails to recognize that genuine connection is rooted in transparency and mutual respect. Relationships thrive on authenticity and trust, not on the need to create distance and uncertainty. When one withholds attention, they may temporarily create intrigue, but in the long run, this behavior tends to erode trust and connection. People naturally seek those who are emotionally available and secure, those who offer stability and clarity. By playing hard to get, a person signals that they are not fully available or secure, thereby diminishing their own value in the eyes of others. In reality, the person who truly possesses value doesn't need to engage in games to prove themselves. They attract attention through their confidence, authenticity, and the qualities they consistently demonstrate. Their value becomes self-evident because they are aligned with their purpose, grounded in their own worth, and free from the need for external validation. In the end, playing hard to get often signals a lack of true value because it stems from insecurity and a reliance on manipulative tactics rather than genuine self-assurance. Those who seek to control and manipulate through such behaviors reveal their own doubts about their worth, while those who are secure in themselves don't need to play games. They already possess the confidence that draws people to them naturally. Number 6. The psychological effect of ignoring a woman who plays hard to get. Ignoring a woman who plays hard to get carries profound psychological effects that resonate both with the person who's being ignored and the one doing the ignoring. From the perspective of the person who is ignored, it creates a sense of uncertainty, discomfort, and often a feeling of being out of control. Human beings have an inherent need for connection, validation, and reassurance, and when these are withdrawn, it disrupts the psychological equilibrium. When someone is accustomed to attention and validation, being ignored creates a void, leaving them to confront their own insecurities, doubts, and fears. In this state of uncertainty, they are forced to evaluate their worth and the role they play in the relationship. The act of being ignored triggers a need for validation, which can result in heightened emotional discomfort and a search for answers. This uncertainty often leads to self-doubt, questioning, and the desire to regain the attention they feel they've lost. They may try to reassert control by testing boundaries further, seeking validation through other means, or reflecting on what went wrong. The psychological discomfort arises from the disruption of expectation. When someone is used to a certain level of attention and that attention is withdrawn, it creates an imbalance in the relationship dynamic. For the person doing the ignoring, the psychological effect is rooted in empowerment and self-mastery. By choosing to ignore someone who plays hard to get, they reinforce their own sense of value and self-respect. The decision to ignore isn't born out of anger or resentment, but from a place of understanding one's worth and maintaining emotional boundaries. High-value individuals recognize that chasing or seeking validation from someone who plays hard to get diminishes their own power and self-respect. Instead, they choose to detach and create distance, allowing the woman who is accustomed to attention to confront her own motivations. The act of ignoring sends a clear message of self-assuredness, reminding the ignored individual that their worth isn't contingent on external validation. It reinforces the belief that one's value isn't dictated by the attention or approval of others, but by one's own character, integrity, and actions. This internal shift often leads to a deeper sense of confidence and control for the person who ignores. They no longer feel the need to pursue attention or validation, but instead focus on what truly matters: personal growth, purpose, and maintaining their emotional well-being. The psychological effect on the relationship dynamic is also significant. When a woman plays hard to get, the act of ignoring forces her to confront her own behavior and motivations. The silence and distance may create uncertainty, causing her to question whether the relationship holds any genuine value for the person who's ignoring her. This can lead to introspection, as she wonders if her game playing has had the intended effect or if it has pushed the person away. In many cases, this self-reflection prompts a deeper understanding of her own insecurities and unmet desires. The act of being ignored, therefore, often results in a shift in how she views her own self-worth and the dynamics of the relationship. It compels her to reevaluate whether her behavior aligns with her goals and desires. For the individual doing the ignoring, the psychological effect is one of emotional clarity and self-assurance. They don't become consumed by the desire to control or pursue, but rather maintain their emotional autonomy. By ignoring someone who plays hard to get, they create space for healthier relationships and reinforce their own self-worth. This doesn't come from a place of indifference, but from a place of understanding that their value is stable and self-contained. Ultimately, the psychological effect of ignoring someone who plays hard to get reinforces boundaries, self-respect, and emotional strength. It empowers both parties, one by gaining control over their emotional reactions, and the other by confronting their own insecurities. In doing so, the relationship dynamic shifts, fostering deeper self-awareness and clarity on what truly matters in building meaningful connections. Number 7. Transforming emotional detachment into confidence and power. Transforming emotional detachment into confidence and power is a journey of self-mastery and emotional resilience rooted in Stoic philosophy and psychological growth. Emotional detachment isn't about withdrawing or becoming indifferent. Rather, it's the ability to separate one's emotional reactions from external circumstances, allowing for a greater sense of control and self-awareness. When practiced intentionally, detachment provides the foundation for confidence because it empowers individuals to manage their emotions without being ruled by them. The person who transforms emotional detachment into confidence does so by realizing that their sense of self-worth isn't dependent on external validations, outcomes, or the behavior of others. In this process, detachment becomes a tool for clarity rather than isolation or disengagement. When emotional attachment to outcomes, relationships, or validation is released, it creates space for inner peace and a deeper understanding of what truly matters. Confidence is born from knowing that one's value is intrinsic, something that isn't shaped by others or external circumstances. Instead, it's a product of one's character, virtues, and consistent actions. Emotional detachment allows a person to step back from the emotional noise of life and focus on what they can control: their thoughts, responses, and actions. When someone remains emotionally detached, they break free from the need for constant reassurance or validation, which often fuels insecurity and doubt. By choosing detachment, they avoid becoming emotionally entangled in situations that are beyond their control. This freedom from emotional dependency creates a sense of empowerment because they no longer feel tethered to external outcomes or other people's approval. Instead, they are able to center themselves, maintain their composure, and respond to situations with calmness and clarity. Confidence begins to flourish as a result of this self-possession. When a person detaches from emotional attachments, they stop seeking approval from others to feel worthy. They recognize that their value comes from within, rooted in their principles, character, and actions. The act of detachment provides a level of mental clarity that helps one avoid getting caught in cycles of emotional reaction, where desire, fear, and insecurity often dominate. By detaching from emotional triggers, whether it's the desire to be desired, the fear of rejection, or the need for control, a person gains the power to observe situations without being consumed by their emotional response. This detachment leads to confidence because it fosters self-awareness and a sense of self-possession. When someone is emotionally detached, they no longer feel the need to prove their worth through external validation. Instead, they become guided by their own internal compass, pursuing growth, virtue, and purpose. In this state of detachment, they understand that their worth is not determined by external factors like attention, approval, or validation. Instead, confidence stems from a deep-rooted belief in their own capabilities, resilience, and the ability to remain grounded, no matter the circumstances. Emotional detachment, when cultivated properly, doesn't mean being disconnected from life, but rather cultivating a healthy boundary between one's emotions and external influences. The person who transforms detachment into confidence learns to navigate life with equanimity, responding to situations with reason rather than reacting impulsively. They understand that life's uncertainties and fluctuations are outside of their control, but their response to those circumstances, their actions, mindset, and values are what they can govern. This realization builds confidence because they stop giving their power away to things they cannot control. Confidence flourishes in this state because it is rooted in self-awareness and self-trust. The person who has embraced detachment becomes comfortable with uncertainty and imperfection, knowing that their worth remains steady regardless of external circumstances. Emotional detachment becomes a source of power as it allows them to remain focused on their goals and values, unaffected by fleeting desires or temporary setbacks. In transforming emotional detachment into confidence, a person becomes increasingly resilient to the challenges of life. They no longer seek validation to feel valued, nor do they become consumed by others' opinions or behaviors. Instead, they cultivate a sense of inner certainty, one that is grounded in their own virtues, actions, and purpose. This internal strength allows them to move through life with greater clarity, direction, and self-assuredness, ultimately transforming emotional detachment into a source of lasting confidence and power. Number 8. Why high value? Men don't chase and how it fuels attraction. High-value men don't chase because they understand their worth and operate from a place of confidence, self-assurance, and emotional maturity. In the realm of relationships, chasing often stems from insecurity, a fear of loss, or a desperate need for validation. However, high-value men recognize that chasing undermines their own power and diminishes their self-respect. True value isn't tied to the approval of others or the pursuit of external validation, but rather to one's character, actions, and mindset. A high-value man understands that his worth is intrinsic. grounded in the virtues he upholds, the goals he pursues, and the self-respect he maintains. By not chasing, he refuses to give his power away to external circumstances or the whims of others. When a man chases, he inadvertently communicates a lack of self-assurance and emotional stability. He is signaling that his worth is dependent on the attention or validation he receives, which can be perceived as needy or insecure. High-value men operate from a position of emotional abundance. They believe in their own value and don't seek external validation to affirm their worth. Instead, they attract through confidence, self-possession, and a calm assurance that they are worthy, regardless of the outcome of any interaction. This absence of chasing creates a sense of mystery and respect, which naturally fuels attraction. People are naturally drawn to those who are emotionally grounded, self-assured, and free from the need to prove their worth. When a high-value man remains centered, he doesn't feel the need to pursue attention or chase after anyone because he knows his worth is not contingent on external validation. His confidence becomes magnetic, drawing others toward him rather than pushing them away. Chasing implies a lack of control and the desperate need to secure validation, while not chasing communicates that the man has a firm grasp on his own value. This detachment creates an air of mystery and intrigue, which naturally attracts others. People are drawn to those who are self-assured and emotionally stable because they exude calmness, strength, and a sense of purpose. By not chasing, a high-value man signals that he values himself and his time, understanding that his energy is better spent on pursuits that align with his goals and values. He doesn't waste time on those who aren't genuinely interested or who play games. Instead, he invests his energy in those who respect and value him in return. This approach fosters respect and builds attraction, as it demonstrates that he has a clear sense of direction and boundaries. High-value men are not defined by external validation or fleeting desires. They operate from a foundation of self-respect and self-awareness. They recognize that chasing after someone who is playing hard to get undermines their own self-worth, as it places their value in the hands of someone else. Instead, they cultivate a mindset of abundance, knowing that their value doesn't diminish because someone isn't pursuing them or responding in a particular way. This mindset not only keeps their self-esteem intact, but also fuels genuine attraction. People are drawn to those who are secure in themselves, who don't need to chase or pursue validation. High-value men don't chase because they understand that true connections are built on respect, authenticity, and mutual desire. They prioritize their own growth, purpose, and values, recognizing that trying to control or manipulate another person's behavior detracts from their own self-respect. When a man stops chasing, he signals that his attention and energy are valuable, and that he doesn't need to seek external approval to feel worthy. This emotional independence creates an air of confidence and allure that naturally attracts others. People are instinctively drawn to those who demonstrate self-control, purpose, and emotional resilience, qualities that are inherently attractive and indicative of high value. In the absence of chasing, relationships are formed based on mutual respect and desire, rather than control or insecurity. High-value men understand that chasing is often driven by fear, anxiety, and a lack of self-worth. By refraining from chasing, they reclaim their emotional power, becoming more intentional about how they engage with others. This decision empowers them to attract people who respect and value them for who they are, rather than those who are drawn solely by the pursuit. In this way, not chasing becomes a source of strength, fueling genuine attraction, and allowing high-value men to attract those who are genuinely interested in what they have to offer, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Number 9. The role of patience in dealing with hard-to-get behavior. Patience plays a crucial role in dealing with hard-to-get behavior, especially from a Stoic and psychologically grounded perspective. Hard-to-get behavior is often rooted in the fear of rejection, the desire for control, or insecurity about one's own worth. In such situations, those who exhibit this behavior are typically testing boundaries, seeking validation, or trying to maintain a sense of power. However, patience allows individuals to approach these dynamics with a calm and composed mindset, avoiding reactive behavior and fostering resilience. When dealing with someone who is hard to get, patience allows one to detach emotionally and respond with clarity rather than impulsivity. The person who remains patient understands that their self-worth isn't dependent on someone else's attention or actions. Instead of rushing to react or give in to the need for validation, they stay grounded and maintain a level of emotional detachment. Patience encourages individuals to observe the situation without becoming emotionally entangled or consumed by the person's behavior. By not rushing or reacting out of frustration, they create space for self-reflection and a deeper understanding of what the other person may be struggling with. Patience also helps to break free from the cycle of chasing or pursuing validation, which often fuels hard-to-get behavior. When someone plays hard to get, they may be seeking reassurance or control over the relationship. However, by practicing patience, one can avoid giving their power away to this dynamic. Instead, they allow time and space for clarity to emerge. Patience empowers individuals to stay true to their own values and self-respect, rather than being swayed by the temporary allure of control or attention. In the face of hard-to-get behavior, patience fosters a sense of emotional maturity and self-awareness. Rather than becoming reactive or desperate, a patient individual remains focused on their own growth, purpose, and values. They understand that trying to force a connection or chase after someone who isn't ready or fully present will only diminish their own emotional well-being. By allowing time to pass, they avoid becoming consumed by the other person's elusive behavior and instead focus on what they can control, their own reactions, actions, and boundaries. This sense of patience allows for deeper understanding and perspective. It helps individuals realize that relationships built on genuine connection are not driven by manipulation or games, but by mutual respect and desire. Hard-to-get behavior often stems from insecurity or uncertainty, and patience allows the person displaying these traits to reflect on their own feelings and motivations. In the meantime, the person practicing patience remains calm and unwavering, understanding that their value isn't diminished by the other person's hesitation. Patience fosters self-confidence and resilience. Those who embrace it are less likely to become ensnared in the temporary power dynamics often associated with hard-to-get behavior. Instead, they allow time to work its course, recognizing that people evolve and situations change. They trust that if a connection is meant to be, it will develop naturally, without the need for manipulation or force. Furthermore, patience reinforces the importance of boundaries and self-respect. When dealing with someone who is hard to get, a patient individual respects their own time and energy, understanding that investing in relationships that aren't aligned with their values is neither healthy nor productive. By maintaining patience, they avoid becoming emotionally attached to someone whose behavior may not be rooted in genuine interest. This detachment allows them to prioritize their own well-being, focusing on relationships that align with their principles, values, and goals. In dealing with hard-to-get behavior, patience cultivates strength and emotional resilience. It removes the need to control outcomes and instead encourages acceptance of uncertainty. By remaining patient, individuals can let go of the desire for immediate validation and trust that what is meant to be will unfold in due time. This mindset fosters a deeper sense of peace and control, allowing people to act from a position of strength rather than desperation. Patience becomes a tool for long-term growth and emotional maturity, helping individuals cultivate healthier relationships built on authenticity and mutual respect. Number 10. Using Stoic principles to let go of outcome and maintain confidence. Using Stoic principles to let go of outcomes and maintain confidence is rooted in the belief that external circumstances are beyond our control, and that true peace and strength come from focusing on what lies within, our actions, thoughts, and reactions. Stoicism teaches that outcomes are indifferent and should not determine our sense of self-worth. Instead, the focus should be on cultivating virtue, maintaining equanimity, and acting in accordance with one's values, regardless of the results. By embracing this mindset, one can let go of the desire for control over outcomes and, in turn, maintain unshakable confidence. A key Stoic principle is the dichotomy of control, which asserts that we have control only over our own thoughts, beliefs, and actions. The outcomes of our efforts, the results of our actions, are outside of our control. By understanding and internalizing this, a Stoic learns to release the need to influence or obsess over results. The pursuit of such control often leads to anxiety, frustration, and a diminished sense of self-worth. However, when we align our efforts with virtue and focus on what we can control, our responses, our character, and our decisions, we cultivate a sense of tranquility and resilience. Maintaining confidence in the face of uncertainty requires recognizing that outcomes are fleeting and impermanent. Stoicism teaches us that confidence arises from within, not from external validation or success. By adopting this perspective, we learn to detach from the desire for specific results, understanding that our worth isn't tied to external achievements or the approval of others. Instead, confidence becomes rooted in the knowledge that we have acted according to our values and principles. The practice of focusing on what we can control helps reduce the attachment to outcomes, thereby freeing us from the emotional turbulence that often accompanies chasing success or approval. Stoic discipline emphasizes that we should aim to align our actions with what is within our power, rather than fixating on outcomes that are beyond our grasp. When we release the attachment to results, we create space for resilience and composure. Confidence is maintained because we trust ourselves to act virtuously, regardless of external circumstances. A Stoic understands that even when things don't go as planned, their value remains intact because it is rooted in their character and virtue, not in the fleeting achievements or external outcomes. This mindset allows for a level of self-assurance that isn't dependent